In today's lab, you guys are going to be introduced to the chemical vials. This picture on the right here is an example of what the different chemical vials are going to look like. And I want to explain to you how you can read and better understand some of the information that's provided to you on the chemical vial. You can see here that there are actually 3 different pieces of information that are provided about the substance inside of the vial. And so I want to break these down and explain which each parts of them are. First, you're going to see a word on the very top line, and that's going to typically be a longer word, and it might be a word that you're unfamiliar with. This word is the chemical name for the substance. The chemical name for the substance usually gives you some clues about what elements are in the substance. For example, if you can see here that the word sodium is the first word, and at the end it says bicarbonate, you can guess that sodium and carbon elements make up this substance. The next line is actually going to be a phrase or a word that you might actually be more familiar with. That is because the second line in the parentheses is what is known as the common name. Some of the things that we'll be working with in our labs do have very common purposes in our regular life, and so this might be a name that you might be more familiar with. Now, the last thing on the bottom here is going to look foreign to you. It is just going to be and look like a couple of letters, some capitalized, some not, and maybe some numbers in there. But what this is the chemical formula for this substance. And the chemical formula can tell us a lot of things about what this substance is made up of. And we are going to dive in to explore this a little bit further. So taking a closer look at the chemical formula for sodium bicarbonate, you can see that it is a combination of capital letters and lowercase letters, and in this case, a number. And so I'm going to teach you how to read this chemical formula. The first tip is to look for capital letters. So as I'm going through, I can see that there's a capital letter here with the N, with the H, the C, and the O. And so now I just need to know, what do those capital letters mean? Well, the capital letters is a signal that shows us that there is a separation between elements. Each capital letter actually represents a new type of element. So as I go through here and I draw separation lines to separate wherever there is a capital letter, it shows me that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different elements that make up sodium bicarbonate. And so now all I need to do, and this is tip 2, is I need to go to the periodic table of elements. As I use the periodic table of elements, it will be able to tell me specifically which elements make up this substance. So if I flip open my lab notebook on that inside cover, I can see that Na actually is represented by sodium. H is represented by hydrogen, C is represented by carbon, and O represents oxygen. Now there's one more thing that we can learn here, and that relates to if there are any numbers in our setup. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for numbers as I'm looking through the chemical equation. As you can see over here, there's only one number, and that is the number 3. And that number 3 is behind the O. And so that is going to give me a very big clue, because what we just talked about is that each of these elements, sodium, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, make up sodium bicarbonate. And so when we look for numbers, that tells us how many of the elements are part of that substance. And so when I see the number 3, that tells me that there are 3 oxygens that make up, or that are part of making up sodium bicarbonate. Because all of the rest of them are written on here, that means that there is one of the rest, because there's no extra numbers behind them. So looking at it as a big picture, I can see that sodium bicarbonate is made up of 1 sodium, 1 hydrogen, 1 carbon, and 3 oxygen atoms. This can be helpful for understanding a little bit more about what is made up of the substance. But you can see here at the bottom of the vial, and actually on the lid of the vial, tells you the chemical formula. So the chemical formula is quite important. So in class on Friday, we're going to be taking a look at all of the different substances that we're going to be working with. And so we're going to do some initial observations and get a chemical table set up that we can refer back to often as we are doing experiments. And so I'm going to walk you through how I'd like for you to set up your table so that you'll be ready to go for Friday. First, we need to set up our columns. We're going to have 4 columns set up, leaving a little bit of extra room in that last column on the right. The first column is going to be dedicated for the chemical name of the substance, or that top line. The second one is going to be set up for the common name, or the name that we might normally know the substance by in normal life. The next one is going to be set up for the chemical formula, which is the series of capital letters and numbers. And the last column is actually going to be where you're going to put your observations of what you think the distinguishing features of those substances are. Now, I will tell you that all of the substances are white, so we need to be a lot more detailed than just saying the color of the substance. So if you have this table set up, you are going to be ready to go for class on Friday, and we will check out these substances a little bit more up close.